Good morning, everyone. School Journal of Education and SchoolReformer.com welcomes today's speaker, Dr. Shivani Sahni. Today's topic is project-based learning. The duration of the topic is around 20 minutes. During or after the talk, please post your questions in the QA box, which you will see below this video screen. Ms. Speaker, you can start your talk now, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Praveena. I'm really humbled that you've given me an opportunity to be a speaker on this platform specifically for the topic project-based learning, because this is such a topic which is very vast and is quite often confused too. So since this is project-based learning, which is quite experiential in nature, I would like to start with an activity. So all our viewers, I would just want you to give 1 minute for this activity to yourself. I would not be asking you questions, but I would want you to imagine to be in this process of the activity that I would want you to be taken through. So first, I would want you all to recall a specific event or an experience that you would have recently encountered. It could be anything related to your work, your personal life, or any other incidents. Just give a few seconds to think of any recent experience of yours. Once you've done that, I would now want you to take a little while to think on what type of emotions or the thought and the reactions this experience is evoking in you. What you can consider here is that what had happened, what you had observed, and how is it making you feel, or how did it make you feel at that point in time? So once we are through with the second step, I now want you to analyze your experience or your feelings, giving it a meaning, or look at the pattern that it generated for you. Sometimes it so happens that there are certain experiences that keep happening in our life, and they show us a pattern that, oh, and then we think, oh, why is this happening? What do I need to do about it? And now, based on your reflections and the conceptualizations, I want you to brainstorm and maybe plan one action or some actions to test your understanding and apply your insights. So meaning, whatever pattern that you could see, think of one action that you would want to do to break that pattern, or to come out of that pattern, or to do something about it, so that if that's not a good pattern for you, that doesn't get repeated, or if it's a good pattern, so how do you need to continue so that you continue to have those experiences? So once we've done all these 4 steps, I would now like you to be taken to this journey of what we all did in this activity. So what did I do in this activity? Let's look at the first step of recalling a recent experience. What is that? That's a concrete experience. That was an experience. So right now we cannot do an experience. So as in the classrooms, we give certain material or certain tasks to the students to experience something. Since we cannot have that happen here, that is why I asked you all to recall. So recalling an experience was a concrete experience. What we did next, we observed the thoughts and emotions. So what was that? That was called a reflective observation. The third step was, remember that I asked you to develop a connection or see if there is a pattern or what is happening in that. So what is your experience teaching you? So that was abstract conceptualization. And when there was the point of asking you to think of an action that you would take in with respect to that experience, that was an active experimentation. Now, Why did I talk about all of these 4 steps? That is concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. Because I'm sure that the educators would connect this with one thing, which is experiential learning cycle that was proposed by Kolb's. So this is nothing but Kolb's cycle of experiential learning, and which plays a pivotal role in the project-based learning system. So what's that? When we are feeling something, that's giving an experience to the students. When we are giving them to see and observe and reflect, that's the reflective observation. When we ask them to think and reflect again, that's the abstract conceptualization that the students do. And then they do test and verify, that is called the active experimentation. Let's look at what happens in PBL. PBL, that is project-based learning, takes care of all these stages, which is observing, doing, listening, talking, reflecting, thinking, writing, discussing, reading, practicing, presenting, and applying. And in the entire process, the circle of assessment keeps happening because it's a continuous reflective and assessment process. What do we really mean by project-based learning? Project-based learning actually is an experience. It's a model of teaching students through activities and experiences. It is not teacher-centric at all. It is completely a student-centered method where the processes are student-centric and teacher is just a facilitator. It enhances the competencies of the students, building not only the curricular concepts, but also the co-curricular and the skills like 21st century skills and life skills. We will see how that happens. It's an integrated process which involves various streams. That is, all the subjects and domains of knowledge are included in it. And it's a continuous reflective and assessment process. How do we engage students in PBL? The students, as I mentioned, that they start experimenting. So when they are starting to experiment, they are given meaningful tasks which they are asked to perform. They then reflect on what they have done. They construct an understanding. They build a conceptual understanding on various issues. I am going to take a particular example, and then I will discuss how, taking a particular project in hand, the students perform, they reflect, they understand the concepts, they create a product at the end of maybe during the time of culmination or in the process of project-based learning as well. And at the end, they present their complete understanding and the learning process in the form of a culmination. Now, when I'm talking about project-based learning, it is very important to start a particular topic or a project with a question, a driving question, which is inquiry-based. So as I mentioned that I'll take an example. So let's take an example of food preservation. So how not to waste food. So we took this topic for grade 5. It's a very easy and a very simple thing to do with the students. You can have 2 mangoes in your hand. One, a rotten mango, which would have been kept for a few days, and one, fresh mango. So showing these 2 mangoes to the students in a class and just asking them, what is your observation? So that's a thought-provoking question. What is your observation? It's an open-ended question. So it is very important for us to start with a driving question, which is open-ended, which stimulates inquiry and curiosity in the children. It has to be thought-provoking. It has to be relevant, because when I'm showing a rotten mango, the idea behind that is there in my mind is about food preservation. That I know, because that's my outcome that I would generate during the process. However, for students, it's just an observation to be made, and we proceed from there. The next element which is required in project-based learning is authenticity. The project should have a real-world relevance. Now, the example that I'm taking has a real-world relevance to the students. The student should be able to make connections. It is very important for them to make connections with what they are experiencing. These topics could be related to now when we are talking about food preservation, we are doing science. We are doing languages. How we will be doing languages, I'll show how it is integrated beautifully in this project. We can also take certain local issues or the community needs or global challenges, maybe like sustainability. The next element is inquiry and research. Students need to engage in inquiry-based research to explore the driving question, gather information, analyze data, and develop a deep understanding to the topic. They can conduct interviews, surveys, experiments, or use various other kinds of resource materials. Another key element in project-based learning is collaboration. Project-based learning encourages collaboration and teamwork. Students work together in groups to plan, research, design, and execute their projects. They learn to communicate effectively, they delegate tasks, they resolve conflicts that happen in the process, and leverage each other's learning. Critical thinking and problem solving. When I spoke about 21st century skills, most important 21st century skills, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, innovation. So this is what PBL emphasizes on, because the students are, the opportunities are created for the students where they analyze information, where they evaluate the evidences, where they take informed decisions and they solve complex problems. They learn to think critically, consider multiple perspectives, and develop logical reasoning. Opportunities are given to the students to express their creativity, their innovations, their thoughts, their ideas. They design, they create prototypes and multimedia presentations also in the process, and a lot more that we can't even think of. But when we start planning such kinds of projects, there is no limit. Sky is the limit, actually. Reflection and assessment. Throughout the project, students engage in reflection to monitor their progress, assess their learning, and make adjustments. They document their learning journey, keep journals, they create portfolios, and present their findings to the class or a wider audience. Wider audience, we have been, in my school, we've been culminating the project in front of the parents. So that becomes the wider audience for the students. So these are a few 21st century skills that the project-based learning helps in. Now let's look at this project in a wider perspective. So the project is learning not to waste food. What all we are covering in that? Causes for the spoilage of food. So that is science. Growth of microorganisms. Causes for the growth of microorganisms. Why are the microorganisms growing? So that's moisture and warmth. So when we show the mangoes, the two different mangoes, we leave the students with a question. There is a thought that starts coming. Why did it get spoiled? What was the reason? So it wasn't kept in the refrigerator, maybe, or maybe even if kept in the refrigerator for long, unlike of the other one. So what could be the reasons? Okay, it could be the moisture, it could be the warmth, and then they go to the libraries also, they study, they do Google search, they ask questions. So they prepare questionnaires to ask to take surveys from their parents, their grandparents, their neighbors, so to get the information about all of these things. Then not all microorganisms in the process, they study that not all microorganisms are bad, are harmful. There is a microorganism that is involved in the setting up of curd. So the students are made to set up the curd in the school, and they observe that under the microscope. Or also see on the interactive board the shape of the microorganisms, lactobacillus, etc. Understanding the role of yeast in baking bread. They are given the experience of baking the bread themselves. They take out the costs also. So mathematics gets also involved in it. How? That the unitary method. So what all material are they using? So what is the total cost of baking a bread, maybe, and how many people would could be served through that bread? So what would be the cost per person, and things like that. So they learn the techniques of preservation. They also go through the case studies, like one of the case studies that we shared was for Lijjat Papad. So that is again a way of preservation of food. So how the dals are preserved in the form of papad. And it also gives the opportunity to people for making money. So how entrepreneurship can be one part of food preservation. So a lot of the non-fiction text can be provided to the students. So for the language development as well as critical thinking, imagination. So what else can be done? A lot of wrappers, a lot of material, like maybe a pickle can be handed over, a jam bottle, then the blanched peas, like those safal matters and all. So keeping different types of food items, again, can be a driving question for the students. So, okay, what are these? What are the ingredients used? How are they similar or how are they not similar, dissimilar, right? So all the foods are preserved, but the method of preservation is different. So how is each method different from the other one, right? Pickling requires oiling. So what is the function of oil? What is the function of frying? What is the function of drying? So there have been like fenugreek or besides fenugreek, mint leaves, coriander leaves, they could be preserved by drying. Cauliflower can be preserved by drying. So the students work on this. These are the further, so it's an entire 6 months process. And the 6 months involved conducting interviews, taking out the similarities, dissimilarities, various techniques of freezing, pickling, drying. All of these skills have been done. Their experience writing, the students take an approval for creating to making a final product, maybe pickling or drying. And at the culmination, they sell that product. For that, they label the product, they name a product, they label the product. So using the ICT skills, using publisher software, they create the label of the product, after deciding onto the name of that. Then they go through the labels of the products available in the market. So their shelf life, what all ingredients, all of that is being created by them on publisher. They create pamphlets so that they share it with their parents and call them for a culmination, invite them for a culmination. So an invite. So there the ICT skills are utilized. They have been creating videos for the entire process that they had gone through during the 6 months. So they learned the process of making videos, creating invitations, learning, and so various video editing softwares were being utilized. So in such way, if we look at it, so not only it is the science or the mathematics or the English language or the computer that they were beautifully integrated, but it led to thought provocation. It led to research. It led to creating a questionnaire. So it is very important for students also to understand what to ask, right? The important question, because we may go on Google and do a lot of research work, but then a key is the right question, the art of asking the right question. So they frame questions, they conduct surveys. So all of these things beautifully, and at the end when their products get sold, so whatever profit they make after returning back the money that they took as a loan from the school, they support a community, so the profit is being shared with the orphanage in the form of goodie bags to them. So they bring smiles to the children's faces. During Diwali, this is generally is what we have been doing. These are a sample of few timelines, knowing my school building, knowing my kitchen, my body. So the culmination is done through creation of this. And believe you me, this brings in a wonderful experience because students have done it all by themselves. So there is no need of memorization of any part. The teacher doesn't have to write any script or anything and give it to any student to share it with the parents. So the child doesn't have to rote memorize, because each and every child has experienced it, has been a part of that project right from the beginning till the end, till the culmination. So the students are able to share their experiences, their doing, their actions, all of that. And that's a beautiful process that we see. So to culminate this presentation of mine on project-based learning, my last slide says, how do students benefit from PBL? We've all seen that it enhances critical thinking in students, it enhances effective communication amongst them, problem solving, self-awareness, it creates self-awareness, empathy, because in the process, sometimes there are differences, sometimes there are different thought points, and then there are those differences being taken care of by the students by being empathetic towards each other, managing emotions. And in the process of being empathetic, emotions are always being managed. It's a teamwork, always collaboration. So decision making and independent learning. So project-based learning not only takes care of the curricular areas, but also develop life skills and 21st century skills. So that's all from my side on project-based learning, though I can keep going on and on and on with project-based learning, because it's something which is very, very close to my heart. And I wish that every school practices project-based learning, so our students come out to be great innovators and empathetic individuals. Any questions? I open the floor for the questions now.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Shivani, it's really a very good presentation. And hello.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. So can you close your PPT and expand your camera screen, please, so that the audience can have a better view? Yes, please. Yes, ma'am. So the first question, it's a very important question also, and it's a very good question. What motivated you to incorporate PBL into your teaching approach? The questions, a couple of questions are asked by Pooja and Mr. Harish, and some questions are asked by others who prefer to be anonymous. So the first question by Pooja is, what motivated you to incorporate PBL into your teaching approach, ma'am?
Thank you so much, Pooja, for asking these questions. In fact, Pooja, I would give it to the skills. I come from corporate background, though most of my life's journey in career is now in education. It's been more than 14 years that I'm in education. However, I started my career with sales and marketing. So being in corporate, when I saw the gap in the skills, that there was a huge skill set gap that was there when the students graduate from schools to higher education and from higher education to the corporate world. So they are not ready for the corporate world. And that was the reason I thought that it's important. That is the reason that got me into education, giving back to the society, and the bringing in of the skill set which was missing. That made me get into project-based learning. And I was really fortunate enough that I got connected to a curriculum development team, which was already working on experiential learning and project-based learning. So I got connected with them. And while they were preparing this curriculum, I was a part of that team. And that's how this all got created.
Yes, ma'am. So Pooja wants to she wants to know, can you share a memorable project-based learning experience you have facilitated and the impact it had on your students' learning?
Yes, sure. So this was grade 4th students who were working on From Farm to Plate. The project was the From Farm to Plate. So the idea was to take them initially to the farms where they would see 2 types of farming. One, the organic farming, and the other, the fertilizer-based farming. And starting from there, how is it that the crop or the vegetables, all of these things, the cereals and all, they reach into our plate, whether it's a restaurant or at home. So that was the entire journey, which included all right from growing of the crop to the wholesalers, and then coming to the restaurants and all of that. So there were various activities that we did, took them to the farm, took them even to the restaurant, where they interviewed the chef, the manager, everybody. So how was the billing process done? So mathematics was there as a part of the billing process and all of that, right? The costing part of it. And how we culminated that project was that the students created a menu for their restaurants. So there were like multiple sections of grade 4, and the students became the event manager. So the roles were divided amongst them. Somebody became the event manager, somebody became created the designs for the menus, somebody created the designs for the pamphlets and all. And they invited the teachers, they invited the parents for the culmination. And wherever they were seeing at the culmination, on the day of culmination, when they had their own restaurants, so multiple restaurants, 10 different cuisines were there, they were having their menus, they prepared, somebody became the chef. So children prepared the meals also. They were also nutritious in nature. So no junk food was being served on that day. So everything was taken care of, very well taken care of, all by the students themselves. And the moment they were seeing that, oh, this stall is having a huge rush and my restaurant is not having that kind of a rush and all, they were quickly coming up with the freebies and different kinds of marketing strategies. Oh my God, I can't tell you, that was such an amazing. Even we could not, as faculty members, not imagine that is how they will be so prompt in doing that. That was something that really was, that I got really carried away. So this culmination was really beautiful. And the impact, of course, it was all visible on the students. Their learning was immense, and we're very proud that we could create that with them.
Right. So that answers, I think, Pooja's next question. Again, like I will read out that question to you. How do you foster student engagement and enthusiasm when introducing a new project to your class? You just spoke about your...
It's automatic. It's really automatic. You just need to go with one driving question. Believe you me, that driving question is apt. That will take you through the entire journey.
Right, ma'am. So what steps do you take to design and plan a successful project-based learning activity that aligns with your curriculum goals?
Right. An extremely important question, actually. So CBSE has given us the guidelines, and CBSE very beautifully shares the learning objectives as well as the outcomes, and outcomes are the most important. Because not all objectives may lead to outcomes. So we need to look at the outcomes. So keeping that outcome for all the subjects, all subject teachers sit together and they think of the so what thing, So a mind map gets created. It is very important for us to create a mind map as well as a concept map, because we need to look at the level of the students also. So till what level that concept has to go, that's very important. So we keep creating the mind map and the concept map, and it beautifully takes care of all the learning outcomes, and that's how a project gets created.
Okay. So talking about the levels and everything, she as another one wants to know, another person, like there is no name here. Could you provide an example of how you scaffold a project to help students with different skill levels succeed and progress? Each child is unique and their learning ability, or however you put it. So how do you scaffold a project to help students with different skill levels?
Pertinent question. If you would have looked into the kind of skills that I mentioned in project-based learning, we mentioned about inquiry, we mentioned about the processes that the students are doing. So we keep into consideration the Bloom's taxonomy as well as the Harvard's multiple intelligences theory. So we understand that there are 8 different types of learners. So they have different learning styles and not everybody is same. So the groups, as I mentioned, that it's collaborative in nature. So whenever there is a task that is given, the groups are heterogeneous in nature. It is never that all similar kinds of learners will be there in one group, because then the hand holding is not happening. Okay. So when we create heterogeneous groups, the teachers sometimes create random groups, sometimes create thoughtful groups. Okay. When we see, because it's all about the observation. So the teacher as a facilitator has to be a very, very keen observer as well. So looking at each task, the teacher would keep tweaking that also. So that's the beauty of the teacher's thought process and the observation, right? So all the looking at the Bloom's taxonomy, we want each child to build the higher level thinking skills, not just remain at the lower level thinking skills. That is why the tasks are such. There would be case studies, there would be involvement of doing active experimentation and all of those things, that all the kind of learners, even the kinesthetic learners, when there is movement involved, when there is task, the ICT skills involved and a lot of things. So all the learners beautifully get integrated in the entire project.
Okay, ma'am. So how do you assess and evaluate student learning in project-based learning, considering both process and outcomes, ma'am?
Their portfolios get created, they prepare their questionnaires, the teacher is observing all the time. It's all a formative type of assessment.
Okay. So this couple of questions are posted by Mr. Harish. Can you discuss a situation where a project didn't go as planned and how you adapted to ensure meaningful learning still took place?
As far as my experience goes, I've been practicing project-based learning since 2012. And so it's like good 11 years now. I haven't come across any teacher coming to me and mentioning anything of that sort. However, yes, there had been an incident once that the project had involved the setting up of curd. So the idea of setting up of the curd was there in the school. However, the teacher had mentioned that to as a homework, as a home task for the students to set up the curd. So through an interactive board, she's shown what kind of lactobacillus bacteria would look like and all of that. So there, a few students performed that activity at home, setting up of the curd, and a few students did not. Some might not have even shared it back home. Some might have shared, but the parents might be busy or something, that activity was not performed. So we had to do that activity in school only, and to show them that this is what happens, and then making a slide of it and studying it under the microscope was done. So there, as I mentioned, that it has to be a little thought process at the teachers, and also that what kind of tasks, what kind of research work has to be sent back home and what has to be done in the school.
Okay, ma'am. So how do you balance project-based learning with other teaching methods to create a well-rounded educational experience? Mr. Harish question.
So Mr. Harish, we are not going away from the learning outcomes for that particular grade for which a particular project is designed. So we are integrating the concepts that are mentioned there for that grade. So when we are doing a project-based learning, those concepts that we are including in that particular project for 6 months or 3 months, because the junior students, we have shorter projects, and for the senior students, we have a little longer projects. So all those concepts are already integrated in it. So there is no, so those projects, those concepts that are covered in a particular project, they are not then covered separately as in a subject. So like if we are doing the methods of food preservation, right? So the methods of food preservation are all done within this project itself. That doesn't need to be done separately by the science teacher.
Right, ma'am. So, Mr. Harish, again, how do you address potential challenges related to time management and pacing when implementing PBL learning within a set curriculum?
Okay. So if there has to be a repetition of the concepts taken in project and then in the classroom, time would be a challenge. However, when we are covering, say, different subjects, a lot of periods that would be engaged in taking those concepts in the class, say for mathematics or for computers or for English, like English, when we are doing the writing skills, right? And if we are doing the experience writing here, paragraph writing here, formal letter writing here in the form of asking for loan, so that's a formal letter. So all of those periods that are supposed to be utilized for these particular tasks for a particular subject are already taken care of in the PBL. So we need not require separate hours for that. Yes, of course, experiential learning requires a little more time. So that is why a lot of thought process goes into it. Lot of thought process has to go into creating the questions, the probing questions, because that's again very important. So there one has to look into those challenges. And of course, a lot of times the students keep responding. So we have to set rules. We have to keep setting rules and keep reiterating the rules, as in how are the students supposed to respond. So the setting up of the rules and their execution helps a lot in taking care of time.
All right, ma'am. I think brainstorming plays an important role in PBL. Looks like that's what I understood. That ends the question answer round, ma'am. School Journal of Education and schoolreformer.com. Thank you for the talk and for patiently answering all the questions. We also thank the audience for participating in the event. We will end the session now. Dr. Sahni, do you want to say anything else, ma'am?
I feel that the responsibility on the shoulders of educators is immense, and one lifetime is too short for us to take care of that. So I would urge all the educators to be very mindful, be very compassionate, empathetic towards the students' journey. And not just only that they have to take care of their curricular needs, but a lot more. And specifically now their emotions. So their social emotional learning is equally important. And I think as far as my experience goes, project-based learning helps a lot in taking care of all of these areas. So think about it, and in case anybody requires any support in this area, I am always available. So you may please share my contact details with the audience, so that because that will be a little contribution from my end if I am able to support anybody in this area. So thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks a lot. We will end the session.